Welcome to Know Your Right, a show that seeks to look at the Zimbabwean Constitution as well as the Bill of Rights. On the show today, I'm joined by Matshobana Ncube to discuss more about the Patriotic Bill. My name is Brighton. Say, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brighton.
Right, there's been a lot of talk about the Patriotic Bill, a motion that has moved in Parliament recently. What is the Patriotic Bill?
There is no bill as such. It's something that has been mooted. It's an idea that has been, in ZANU-PF for quite a while. We know that it has been discussed, in their various fora and stuff like that. But in essence, what has happened is there's a motion. I think you recall that the late legislator Alan Mpofu moved a motion in Parliament to say there should be what should be called a Patriotic Bill, which seeks to achieve certain things. If you look at that motion, it does tell you what it is that they want to achieve in terms of that.
But why are we having this Patriotic Bill as citizens of Zimbabwe? Someone is comparing to the Logan Act or Logan Bill in America. Why are we having this bill in Zimbabwe?
Well, we would know. Obviously, the people who are moving this motion, and more particularly ZANU-PF, would know better. But what we suspect is happening is there's been a suggestion that there are people who are denigrating, Zimbabwe, and therefore, one way or the other, they need to be punished. So I think it's a form of ensuring that those people that do not agree with the government in certain respects, if they fall within the ambit of this bill, we are yet to see, what this bill will specifically say. But of course, the motion does indicate certain things that, are likely to come out in the bill. But certainly, we all know that there has been movement in Zimbabwe to restrict the democratic space. So, insofar as I'm concerned, in my opinion, is a further movement by the state in that direction to squeeze that democratic space, because the government, instead of delivering, is failing to deliver. So what it needs to do is to, in a way, suppress certain viewpoints by those who condemn it for failing to deliver.
But however, when you look at the definition of patriotism, when someone speaks about corruption in Zimbabwe, when someone speaks about human rights violations in Zimbabwe, can you say they're unpatriotic?
Certainly, it's absurd to suggest that such a person is being unpatriotic. If anything, that person is worried about the welfare, the well-being of Zimbabwe. There's no more patriotism that beats that. So to suggest that that person, that kind of person who is saying there is corruption, within certain arms of the state, or certain government departments, or by certain individuals within the state, is being unpatriotic, then we need either to do one of the two things. Either we have to have our minds re-examined to see whether we're okay, or two, we need to revisit the definition of what patriotic means in terms of what is in the English dictionary.
But now let's compare the Logan Act and the Patriotic Bill of Zimbabwe. Some have argued saying it's there in USA, Latin Zimbabwe can do it, can have our own bill. Let's compare the two.
Yes.
How was it implemented in America, and how is it implemented in America?
In fact, insofar as this is concerned, I think I've seen somewhere, I think it has been used once, and it has been used against someone who wanted to assist the enemy of the United States in a war situation. We are not in a war situation in Zimbabwe. No one is assisting anyone in any way. People are making comments about what is obtaining in the country, that there is a worrisome human rights situation that is obtaining in the country, that the freedom of expression is being muzzled, and that people's rights are being infringed day in, day out. People are being arrested on what, we see as trumped up charges. So we see this as a reaction to the fight for a more democratic and more fairer state. But what happens is, if you have a more democratic state, then you're calling the government to account. So if people are saying there's corruption and that it should be investigated, what they are doing is they are calling the government to account, so that those who hold, offices of the state are able to account for what goes in there. If there are those who are doing wrong, people want to see those people being brought to book to account for their actions.
So if this bill is adopted and fully passed as a law in Zimbabwe, let's talk about now the right maybe to freedom of expression, media freedoms in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Will it be easy for media to report neutrally and being independent?
It's not going to be easy because, like I've pointed out, this bill, because what it seeks to do, it seeks to muzzle people from fully expressing themselves. So if you are the media and you have to be reporting on what is going on in Zimbabwe, if you do it, you investigate cases fully, and you report to the generality of the people of Zimbabwe and to the world, because you are no longer, this isolated country. Whatever is reported here overflows to the rest of the world. Like, we also get news from outside the world about what's happening in other countries. So it means that the media is going to be restricted from being able to effectively report or carry out, its duty. And mind you, we need to appreciate that the media is a very key component of the state. In fact, it has been referred to as the fourth estate. After Parliament, the judiciary and the executive, it has been referred to as the fourth estate, because it is so key to the well-being of the country. People need to know what is going on, around themselves. People need to know whether public administration is being done effectively and properly. If there are people who are not doing their work, if there are people who are pilfering public funds, the media needs to highlight these things. But if we do not know how this patriotic bill will be shaped, but it presupposes that those who want to be able to express themselves fully may be held to account. They may be the ones who are found to be in the wrong.
So, can you say, under the new government of President Matshobana Ncube and coming of repealing of IPA and POSA, and now adoption of this Patriotic Bill, how can you say we are progressing or regressing in terms of our democracy and media freedom?
What we are giving with the left hand, we're taking with the right hand. That's what is happening. So there is no movement whatsoever. Because you also have to look at the repeal of IPA and the coming into force of the Freedom of Information Act, which seeks to allow journalists to work better and flourish. But in fact, if this bill were to come into effect, it means you as a journalist, you have to be careful about what you inform the public about, So your work, when you're doing your work, you should be worried that a policeman may be knocking at your doorstep in the evening and taking you to a police station to answer to a charge of contravening this, act when it comes into play. And, on the basis that, in essence, you are not being patriotic.
And also, we've seen NGOs who are programming on the issues of human rights. Now, they can't even meet foreign maybe ambassadors. They can't even speak to them as individual capacity unless they first speak to the state.
Yes.
How do you react to those in terms of programming of the NGOs?
It's going to be difficult, actually, because what they're saying, if you are going to be sharing information with foreign governments or agencies of foreign governments, like, for instance, the USAID, then you are likely to fall foul of this. But what we know is that there is a right, the freedom of association. You are free to associate with any other person in this country. But then what it means is that if you associate with that person and you share information, even if that information is true, you are likely to face, a prosecution, which is really absurd, because I'm saying the Constitution has already granted all these rights, and here is someone who wants to have those rights taken away because a few people in Parliament are deciding. They may be in the majority, but they are few in the sense that the Constitution was voted by the majority of the people of Zimbabwe. So those are the people who said, this is the Constitution we want. But then you have Parliament coming in. So they are few compared to the millions of Zimbabweans. Then they are coming in to say whatever the people said they want to obtain in Zimbabwe in terms of human rights, in terms of fundamental rights and freedoms, we are not going to allow it. So we are at a crossroads. It's not an easy one, but we'll see as, the bill is unfurled. I think they are working on it somewhere, unless they decide to say, look, there's so much outcry that they shelve it. We do not know whether they will go ahead. The move of the motion is no more, but of course the seconder is there, and the party is there. So we'll see what happens, and we'll understand more when the nuts and bolts come out, the meaty stuff, when the bill is finally fashioned out.
Someone once said, when 2013, when this new constitution was being amended, they went far and wide to consult citizens about the new constitution. But now when they bring these bills, they don't consult that much the citizens. What's the role of citizens in terms of this patriotic bill? What's their role in these processes?
In fact, if you look at the Constitution, I think it's section 140, that in coming up with legislation, the public must be involved. So it's a constitutional prescription. It's a constitutional duty that is imposed on the legislature, on the two branches of government, because it's the executive that's moving these through the legislature. So the citizens have a key role. So the citizens have to be, in fact, consulted with respect to this bill. But what I would want to see more is whether the views of citizens are then taken into account. Because we have had, other bills that have been brought forward where people have expressed themselves clearly, without equivocation, that we do not want this. But then you see Parliament going forward ahead to enact, such a law that is clearly, in a way, undemocratic. Because if people who constitute the government, who put the government in office, are not supportive of that legislative agenda, and they express themselves, then the government has a duty to listen to them.
Now let's look at the shrinking of the democratic space if this bill is adopted and passed in Zimbabwe. What are some of the violations that are going to be, maybe some of the rights are going to be violated if this is adopted?
The key right that comes into mind is a fundamental, human right and freedom, is the freedom of expression. People will not be able to express themselves freely. For instance, there are two aspects in which you are supposed to express yourself for you to fall foul of this. If you express yourself on an international platform, or if you express yourself with respect to an international, a government of another country. So these are the two key aspects. So on an international platform, you are looking at someone who's writing on Twitter, or who is a blogger, because it has got a worldwide reach, or someone who's writing on Facebook, because these are American-created platforms. So if you express yourself in a manner that the state is of the view that it denigrates the government of Zimbabwe, that is bringing it into a bad light, whether whatever you are saying is true or not, the manner in which the motion has been fashioned out is that then that becomes unlawful. You have to be prosecuted. So that freedom of expression that we enjoy, you see, today in Zimbabwe, if we were to look about 10 or so years ago, when people congregate, people will be talking to each other. But today, when people congregate, people are on their mobile phones. They are reading stuff, they are posting stuff. What it means is that if you are a Zimbabwean and you are here and you do those kind of things, or even if you're outside, you come here, you are likely to be prosecuted. So that's the freedom of expression, which is a key aspect of the existence of a democracy, of a people, because people cannot exist without expressing themselves. The second right that is likely to be violated is the right to, Section 67 of the political rights in the Constitution, because it says, the second of the motion, if you look at it, it says the people who commit these offenses, if they are convicted, they should be barred from participating in public offices. So in a way, they're saying you can then not participate in a political space. The 67 political rights recognize the right of every person to participate in a political activity with a party of their choice and to seek to be elected into a public office, and if they are so elected, to hold office. This, the second of the motion says, if you are convicted, then you cannot be qualified to contest for office or to hold office. So in a way, there are people who are supposed to be pushed off that political platform so that they cannot contest, they cannot seek to acquire and hold political office. So that's another key right that is going to be violated. And then, of course, there's the freedom of the media. Like I've said, the media is a very key institution in the country. But then if members of the media, journalists especially, they're writing these things, they're posting these things on these, whether it's a blog or, or these social media platforms, they are likely to fall foul of this law. And they're likely to be arrested. I don't know whether they'll be convicted. I mean, something else.
Yes, an article on Newsday, I think a few days ago, was saying government cracks down on social media offenders.
Yes.
So now, to express yourself, according, this is a right you have in the Constitution to express yourself freely.
Yes.
However, now government cracks down on social media offenders. What is social media offender?
Yes.
What's a social media offender in terms of the Patriotic Bill?
Well, I mean, from the wording of that phrase, it will suggest that someone who does wrong on a social media platform, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all these platforms. So if you are found to have done wrong on those platforms, then you are a social media offender, then you are supposed to be accounted for.
So now let's talk about the processes now from the motion has been passed in Parliament. Where to from now?
What is likely to happen ordinarily in bringing about legislation is that Cabinet will generate instructions that will send to the Attorney General's office so that they can draft, a bill. And then the minister, I'm not sure which minister will be pushing this one. Maybe the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs will then come and table that bill formal in Parliament, and then to go through the processes, the report stage, first reading, second reading, and then at the same time going around the portfolio committee responsible for that bill, going around the country trying to, get the input of the people as to what their views are in respect of the bill. And then it will then go back to Parliament, and then the Parliamentary Legal Committee will also produce a report to say whether the bill is constitutional or it is likely to violate the Constitution, what they call an adverse report. And then But Parliament, at times, they can forge ahead. It's a question of numbers, a numbers game. And then if then they decide to vote and say they want that bill to be enacted into an act of parliament, they need to be sent to the president for his assent. Once he assents to it, it's gazetted, then it's law.
With the shrinking of democratic space in Zimbabwe and also coming of this bill, this Patriotic Bill, what's in your heart, Mr. Matshobana Ncube, in terms of democracy in Zimbabwe?
We are going backwards. We are regressing. I mean, that's the word that you used. To the period, perhaps back into the dark ages, I mean, in this country. We had moved so far when we agreed to adopt a new constitution. And if you look at that constitution, it represents a radical break from a bitter, painful, dark, undemocratic past. And then an attempt or a statement is made in that constitution seeking a better Zimbabwe. But with this, I fear that we are going so many steps backward. It means all the struggles that we have engaged in trying to bring about democracy, to bring about a freedom, a better human rights culture in this country, they're all going down the drain. So we're going back to where we started, and it's so unfortunate.
Thanks so much, Sir, for joining us this morning and talking about the Patriotic Bill in Zimbabwe.
Thank you for having me, Brighton.
There we have it. You have been watching Know Your Right, a show that seeks to look at the Zimbabwean Constitution as well as the Bill of Rights. My name is Patriotic Bill. Do follow us on Twitter @SideZW. Do follow me on Twitter @TheRealBFactor. #Aside.